Hi everybody, so today I wanted to talk about the whole tone scale, which is the scale of this kind of sound, and also the scale of comedy. The whole tone scale is a scale composed entirely of whole tones, which is a great thing for us guitar players because it means that we can just take the same shape and put it up the neck. It's always fun, isn't it? Same as the diminished chord and the diminished scale for that matter. So because of that, there's only actually two whole tone scales in the world, and one of them starts on C, and one of them starts on C sharp. If we go to D, it's just the same as the first, but starting on a different note. So this is great for guitars, obviously. Like, it means we only have to learn like two shapes. I mean, the same is true actually also of piano as well. So it's a quick win. This scale was heavily used in like the 1930s and 40s by people like, Duke Ellington, Art Tatum, Thelonious Monk, Bud Powell, people like that, and a little bit later on by people like Wes Montgomery. So it's quite an old school sound, but it can be really, really cool. And I would say one of the people who's doing the most to sort of popularise it again in the present day is Pasquale Grasso, who of course is hugely influenced by the music of that era. But it's not just people who are harking back to the bop era. Like Kurt Rosenwinkel uses this scale from time to time as well, and it's a cool scale. I would say it sort of basically came in with like Debussy, really. Although I think there were some examples of people like Rimsky-Korsakov using it before. But Debussy kind of established that dreamy sound world, that impressionistic sound world, which then influenced Hollywood composers to, have this very kind of like, and then they all woke up and it was all a dream. Oh, cue wavy screen, kind of sound to it. Which is not, by the way, how Thelonious Monk uses it. He uses it to create angular sounds. So the whole tone really is very closely related to the augmented triad, which is like a triad with a raised fifth, like a major triad with a raised fifth. And these, again, are symmetrical. They kind of invert into themselves. So the C augmented chord is the same as the E augmented chord, which is the same as the G sharp augmented chord, right? So now the augmented chord the augmented triad doesn't just come from the whole tone scale. It's also parented by the two diatonic minor scales, the harmonic and melodic minors. So for instance, in if I play the melodic minor, for instance, it's going through triads, it's another minor, and then I play this is augmented, or if I play it in sort of close voice triads, you get it there, or in a harmonic minor, you get it here. Sorry, wrong chord. It's this one. Yeah, that sounds more like the harmonic minor, doesn't it? So you can use that therefore as a window or a gateway into the melodic minor, and that's something you can definitely do. I've made a video about that. But actually, you can also use it as a gateway into the whole tone scale, and it probably is worth me just talking quickly about how you can use augmented triads, because they are actually really useful. Probably the main use that we're going to use today is using it as a upper extension of a dominant chord. So in this case, this is dominant D dominant seventh, and we're putting a augmented chord, an augmented triad, on the flat seven, on the C of that. So you get this. I can't finger all of it on this guitar because it's got a silly little thin nuts, but I'll just play this much of it, which is kind of a very Billy Strayhorn, Duke Ellington type of chord. You could also play an augmented on the D as well. But this is like, if I put it here, it's a D9 sharp 11th, right? This is take the A train chord. Yeah, and Billy Strayhorn obviously used these sounds a lot. He loves his augmented triads, what can I say? That's one place you can use it. So you can also use it in a sort of slightly more, I suppose, almost altered context. So in this case, I'm using it on the 1, which gives us slightly different extensions. This one gives us the sharp 11th. This gives us the sharp 5 or flat 13. So it sounds a little bit more like the altered scale, but in practice actually they both belong to the same whole tone scale. So from the point of view of the whole tone scale it doesn't matter. And also from the point of the whole tone scale, because it's got 6 notes, it doesn't follow the alphabet rule. So it could be a sharp 11th here, but it could also be a flat 5. So you could be playing this. It doesn't matter, you know, and kind of the same thing as far as the whole tone scale is concerned, which is makes life easier, I guess. And you can apply them to other types of chords as well. So I can apply, there's for instance in a G minor major 7th, there's a augmented triad on the 3rd there. That's a very nice sound to put in minor. And also on a half diminished chord, I like play a D minor 7 flat 5. I can put the 9th in, and then we get a D9 flat 5, but the augmented triad is here, and we can also put it here. So it's actually kind of similar to the D7 actually. And there's no 3rd in this particular voicing that I'm playing, so it makes no difference if I did put a 3rd in, as opposed to that's the difference, right? If I put that in on an A half diminished chord, that would end up, I guess, here. Okay, this enriches the sound slightly. Hopefully you'll start to recognise these sorts of sounds when you hear them. One of my favourites is the sus chord. So instead of just playing a boring old boomer sus chord, you can play, a sort of more, that's a bit more silent generation, if you like. That's got the augmented triad on top of the flat 9, I suppose, or you could say the 4th, and that becomes a D13 flat 9 sus 4 chord, which is far too hip for James Taylor. No disrespect to James Taylor, sorry. I don't really mean that. But it's kind of, a very rich sound. Again, you can hear it in Strayhorn, and also things like Afternoon in Paris, I think, uses it in one of the recordings. That's a very cool sound. Anyway, so that gives you some usages of the augmented triad. Now, what can we do with the whole tone? Well, anywhere there's an augmented chord, we can play a whole tone. The obvious choice would be if I do something like take the A train. Sorry. Put it up here, yeah? So then we get that. That's a little bit the kind of thing that G. Kellington would have done. And then... Now I've opted to put a whole tone scale on this one as well, which I think is cool. So you got the C major, boom, ba, boom, boom, ba, boom, and then G sharp is the sharp 11th of that chord, which strongly implies either the Lydian dominant or, in our case, the whole tone, which was Duke Ellington's favoured scale. Go to D minor, and then we go G. Let's go G7 flat 13. You can play another whole tone there. Sorry. Okay, so that's kind of cool, isn't it? We're using, so this whole tone, by the way, on the D7 is a different one to the one on the G7, so that's worth knowing about. Let's take a simple 2-5-1. I'm going to take a minor 2-5-1 in, let's do one in D minor. So we're going to do this chord, E minor 7 flat 5, there's your augmented, and then that chord, the A7 flat 13, there's your augmented there. So you've got this augmented, and we'll resolve to a straight minor, because you need a bit of resolution after all of that whole toneness. So, and you can also put the augmented on the 1 chord as well, on the D, which gives you a D minor major 7th, right? This is pretty cool. I mentioned this briefly in the other video, but what it also means is that there's a principle which I use, which is called ignoring the bottom half of the chord. And what that means is, and if you think it's kind of crazy and out there, actually Wes Montgomery does this. If you take like a G minor major 7th chord, you got in this case a B flat augmented triad on top of that, just put the whole tone scale on it. So it becomes possible to play a minor 2-5-1, and then we go. we can play it on the G minor as well. So as a whole tone on every chord. I'll just give you the lick that Wes Montgomery plays because it relates to our next point. So this is just use of with an extra upbeat passing tone. We go and he does that on G minor on the exact places. It's in the solo on 4 and 6 on Smoking at the half note. He used this lick a lot though. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry. And it's very hit because it's got so like 1, it's like displaced. It's got like groupings of 3, which is a very old jazz rhythm. But you also get it in bluegrass music and banjo rolls and stuff. So it's kind of a very common, prevalent rhythm in generally in American music. That's pretty cool. Thelonious Monk uses the same lick. I always find my fingers get a bit squished in on this guitar. There we go. Be careful not to play triplets. It's not. It's actually 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It's that rhythm, right? 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and you can start in different places. Great lick, and of course you can play it in different positions, or string groups rather. Now, one thing I like to do is I like to go up and down. 1, 2. So, I mean, if you wanted to use that and take the A train. That's how you'd use it, right? Adds a bit of exotic colour to your playing. But it also has a comedic sound to it as well, I think, which suits Thelonious Monk really well. It's that mixture between abstract and actually, kind of, I want to say childish, but I'm not sure if that's the right word. Anyway, so that's a cool lick. Now, another very common lick that you hear all the time is, and I'll probably muck this up now, but it's a straight run, right? Now, this usually starts, if I'm playing, let's do a 2-5-1 to G minor, or a 5-1 to G minor. So D7 to G minor. I got this from Thelonious Monk's amazing solo. I love it on Off minor, which is a great tune. Check it out. And he plays something like this. So it's like 1, 2 and a 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Okay. Ba da 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 da. Oh, that sounds a bit rude. Da 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 boom da 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 da. Probably more that rhythm actually. Da ba dee ba ba dee ba ba dee boom. So 1, 2, 4. So what this is it's obviously triplets. Okay. I obviously can't say anything which doesn't sound vaguely dodgy to triplets, can I? Oh well, never mind. So dabba-dee 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 bum. Okay, or duckity duckit. Where does the bum get involved? Duckity 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 da. Conical, it's safe. Okay. So this is a nice thing. We're starting from the sharp 5, flat 13, depending on how you look at it. As I say, and harmony doesn't really work for whole tone scales. Bagadi-dabba-dee-dabba-dee-do, bagadi-daggity-daggity-do. Okay, and it gives you that little enclosure around the G, which is cool because that gives you the sense of cadence. So that's another lick. You hear that, you hear that quite fast. If you listen to the live version of We See by Gilad Hexelman and Peter Bernstein, they just play that lick perfectly in sync, and it sounds amazing at the end of the B section. Anyway, so that's pretty cool. There's other things you can do. I'm two more things I think that could be quite useful. So there's the whole tone itself. You can just play the interval of the whole tone. So if I'm going on a D, and then play a G minor chord there. So sounds kind of cool, I think. So yeah, that's another thing you can do, which is just basically, I mean, obviously you can play thirds, you know, as well. You know, that sounds a little bit, you know, that sounds a little bit obvious. You know, it's a good thing to practice, I guess. I mean, definitely practice that. But I think like the seconds just sound so like kind of like monk, don't they? Da ba ba, you know, it's like yeah da ba 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 da 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 da. That sounds like kind of, I don't know. I find that amusing. I don't know why. I think there's something wrong with me. Okay, so moving on. My favourite whole tone lick, which I actually got from Pasquale Grasso, but it always makes me think of Salt Peanuts for some reason. Although I can't quite track down the lick, which is to play the whole tone scale in tritones, which is a way to make it sound actually quite weird and angular. How cool is that? I love that. So, you know, if you're playing a solo, very cool. You can change the rhythm up as well, which kind of, you know, and also lapsed into the F sharp whole tone into G minor at the end there as well. So hopefully that'll give you a few ideas. I mean, oh, the last thing is there's a scale that fusion people use called the Messiaen mode of limited transposition number 3, I think it is, which is actually just like a whole tone scale, but every second whole tone is filled in, so you get this. Something's doing it. You know. So that, if you're wondering what that scale is, that's how that's constructed. I think Alan Holsworth uses it, and he got it from Slonimsky or something. So you can use the whole tone as a scaffolding for that as well, and you know, add all kinds of half steps in as well if you want. Anyway, I hope you find that useful and helpful and fun to play around with. It's a great way of injecting a bit of, you know, colour in your playing for really very limited actual learning. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think below.